Well, we're now on the summit of Spioenkop, about 20 kilometers from Ladysmith. And we've just come up this road here, and that first monument you see is that dedicated to the Boers who died here. And this one in the middle is the major British monument here amongst many others. This is the view from the main summit, and you can see the access road where it comes up over that high point. That area was never captured by the British and was held by the Boers throughout the day. This road descends the very steep slope that you can see on the left, and that section of the road has now been paved, which makes it easy for two-wheel drive vehicles to get up here. This is the slope initially held by British and assaulted by the Boers, and the British were very quickly driven back to positions further back, which they defended doggedly through the day. This is one of the very early casualties that day. This is the grave of Lieutenant Alexander Wade of the 2nd Battalion Royal Lancaster Regiment. In his book Commando, Deneys gives a very graphic description of his assault with his companions up this very steep slope, shooting at the British soldiers who were on the crest line here, and eventually, although suffering severe casualties, they drove the British back across this crest line. Dodging from boulder to boulder, they eventually drove the British back from these rocks and faced the summit of Spioenkop. The row of white stones there is now a British mass grave, but it was one of the shallow trenches that the British Tommies dug to try and give themselves some protection from the galling and accurate Boer rifle fire. This cemetery contains a number of graves of unknown brave burghers. This is another Boer grave with these chaps buried in it. And this is the monument to all the burghers who are known to have died on this hill. This is the slope up which the British troops, the assault force comprising 1,700 men, advanced during the night of the 23rd of January 1900 to reach the summit of Spioenkop behind this row of bushes. When the British assault force reached this point, the order was given to them to fix bayonets and advance slowly on up this slope towards the summit of Spioenkop, where the sentries first challenged them. At the point where the stone pile now stands lies the grave of the Boer sentry who was bayoneted to death by the advancing British. All his companions fled in the darkness, and gathering up other sentries that were on top of the hill, they skedaddled down the northeastern slope and raised the alarm in the Boer camps. And that's his relation to the summit of the hill. In the darkness, at this point, General Woodgate ordered his men to construct a defensive trench and breastworks, and this section formed the extreme left of the British position, right up the slope to these large boulder-strewn ridges right on the top of the hill. In order to make it easy to follow the route around Spioenkop, this steel cable has been laid all around the significant points of interest. All you have to do is read your guidebook and follow the cable. And the cable can't be destroyed if the grass is burnt away in a bushfire. This is point F on the guided tour of the battlefield, the walking tour, and indicates this shallow depression with the remains of the stone defence works along the side, which was in fact the British trench that was completed to a depth of only about 30 to 40 centimetres, but in fact gave a good field of fire towards this lip of Spioenkop. As you can see from the stony nature of the ground, digging in it was extremely difficult. And it was here that the British soldiers, exhausted, waited for the early morning mist to lift to see exactly what they had achieved. When it did, they were in a very vulnerable position from Boer guns that were ranged onto them and fired on them all day. This is from the extreme summit of Spioenkop, and we're looking at the Drakensberg, and this is the main monument on the top. And there are a lot of panels around it, as you can see, with the inevitable lightning arrestor on the top. From the monument lies one of the mass graves on the top of Spioenkop. The ground was so shallow that the defence trench that these men tried to defend and perished in was used as their grave. These are more mass graves here, and they follow the curve of the hill right round to this point. From here we look down first on Allow Knoll, and the Twin Peaks, which the British were able to capture from the Boers by the end of the day on the 24th of January. And it was at this point that Major General Woodgate was mortally wounded when he went forward without taking due care to see where the Boer positions were in front of his trenches, and was duly shot. He died in the military hospital near Moy River several weeks later. This striking monument has been erected to the men of the Imperial Light Infantry who died on Spioenkop. This is the Spioenkop Dam, which was built during the 1970s and dams the Tugela River, which runs along here. Ultimately flowing past Colenso and on down to the Indian Ocean. We're now looking over the Twin Peaks, which Lord Dundonald and his men captured during the latter stages of the Battle of Spioenkop. This grave contains the bodies of unknown British soldiers very close to the crest line on the northeastern slopes of Spioenkop, and in the distance you can see the flat country from which the Boers advanced, and looking further into the distance in the direction of Ladysmith. From here, which is the position that the Boers gained fairly quickly, the view towards the main British trench is quite startling, because they're not more than 100 yards or so from it. That's the view of the British trench, which has now become a mass grave. Looking further up the hill towards the summit monument. And as we say farewell to Spioenkop, just look at the beautiful reflection on the still afternoon of the hills in the Spioenkop Dam. And this is the road up and down Spioenkop. As you can see, it's not exactly the national highway. Now, this is the easy part, but it does get a little bit hairy further on. Fortunately, the road is now paved, which makes it a great deal easier. The livestock are not actually Boer ponies. This is the paved section. What a difference this has made to getting to this place.